Welcome to the Featured Anime Podcast. I'm your host, Jack.
And I'm Rick.
And today we are talking about Erased, which was a recommendation from Angel down in Chile. So thank you very much for the recommendation. It was very much appreciated.
I agree. I thought we saw this before, mainly because of the crud, what's it called? The cover, like the what do you call it? The cover art.
Okay.
And I mistook it for something we actually have watched before called Another.
Yes. But before all that, we were just kind of talking about the patron exclusive choices that are currently up for vote right now, and our feelings over them, and kind of surprised at the fact that Rick still hasn't seen Godfather, has not seen Taxi Driver, which is one of the recommended, or I would say a little bit more than recommended. I urge people to preferably vote for Taxi Driver over Dragon Ball Evolution, which is another one of the choices, which is currently winning. Sadly,
it's the only thing it'll ever win.
All right.
That's just because people don't love us that much,
I guess.
Sorry.
But if you want to catch a part of that wider conversation, patreon.com/featured anime podcast, $1 a month will get you access to that bonus content and more. Also, if you want to help support us through other means and don't want to do the Patreon thing, we can certainly, you can also use the affiliate links that we have in the description for Right Stuff Anime. Using that link and buying anything on the website will help us get a little bit of a kickback, so it's very much appreciated. Or you can go to our own merch shop, store.featuredanimepodcast.com, and buy some merch from there. That does also help us out as well, and it is very much appreciated. Now on to the meat and potatoes. Erased came out in January 2006 and aired all the way through March 2006. Producers for it are Aniplex, Kadokawa, Fuji TV, just to name a couple for the producers. Studio for it is A1 Pictures. The genres for it are mystery, supernatural, seinen, suspense, psychological, and time travel. It's based off of a manga, and there are 12 episodes. And before we get into it, I will say something that I didn't know until just fairly recently.
Mm-hmm.
Aniplex.
Aniplex, yes.
And A1 Pictures are the same company.
I don't recognize A1.
A1's done other shows. A1 has done a lot of other anime.
Okay. So like they're super popular?
Well, being that they are a part of Aniplex. But you might recognize them from shows such as Sword Art Online, Your Lie in April, Fairy Tale, Darling in the Franxx.
That's a wide array. Darling in the Franxx and Fairy Tale. Not necessarily the same art style, story, genre. Right.
Blend S is another one.
Why does that sound familiar?
It's the cafe one that we watched where one of the baristas that are in there, they just unwittingly end up just being demeaning and looking down on people all the time and not even trying to.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like something we've watched.
Yep. And then there's Aldo Zero. Just they've done a lot.
Sweet. Okay. I mean, I can't really say anything bad because if they're part of Aniplex. Aniplex.
Well, you can say it incorrectly, or you can learn how to read and say Aniplex.
It's not about reading. When you listen, it's Aniplex.
Well, you can clear out the earwax too and just saying.
I mean, you could keep just saying, if the earwax is blocking that, then it's blocking the incorrect correction. You keep trying. I just always hear Aniplex.
That's because that's what you want.
That's what I've always gone with.
Regardless of whether or not you want to continue on with that is up to you. But
I'm phonically gifted.
You're something. That is for sure.
Oh goodness, yeah. No, there's so many Omniplexes, shows from Omniplex that I thoroughly enjoy. and now apparently A1 as well, because I'm a huge fan of Fairy Tail. And the only thing I really dislike about Fairy Tail is how long it took to get the final season out.
Right. Well, I haven't seen anything by Aniplex, but I have seen Aniplex, and the shows that are produced by them are generally really, really good. So, I mean,
We'll just have to agree with one another at this point.
right?
Oh man.
Uh,
I'm gonna get a recording, and I'm gonna just like I'm gonna have to pay someone to digitally prove I'm right.
right. All I have to do is actually just look at a actual show that they produce, and
I mean, we just watched one. I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did. They were one of the producers, like I said, and Kadokawa was also a part of it as well. So, which just speaks to the volume at which they are great.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
While the show was good, and it says 12 episodes, it really honestly was only 11 episodes.
Why do you say that?
Because you had an entire episode that was a recap.
Okay, fine. I'll give you that. We did have one episode that was nothing but recap, but I would argue that it was warranted. I enjoyed this every episode. I didn't feel like any were unnecessary.
Was it?
Yeah, I liked every last episode. Which one do you think was unnecessary?
The recap episode.
Was it a recap or was it well, I guess
it was
technically a
let's
recap.
fill you in on everything up to this point to make sure that you're caught up. That's what that was.
Well, I enjoyed it. I would watch it again. I have no complaints whatsoever.
Yeah, okay.
It's not a 10. I'm not going to say that, but it's definitely not.
It wasn't bad. I will say that it was not bad, but I will also say I found it, quite predictable.
Really?
Yeah. It's like, oh, there's a murderer. Someone murdered our main protagonist's mom, like right away. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They go back. He goes into the school, and you see the teacher, and I'm like, it's gonna be the teacher. And
really?
Everything that like played throughout the whole thing just like fed right into it. It's like, yep, that makes sense. If he's the guy, yep, that totally makes sense. I'm like almost 100% sure that makes sense. 100%, and like the progression for everything right off the bat for me was like butterfly effect, too at the same time.
I've never seen that show.
Well, it's not a show.
Or that movie.
It's a movie, but it's based off of a theory. You make one change and it ripples and changes a bunch of other things.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, okay,
whether it be small or large, it's up for debate. If someone travels back in time 50,000 years, what ends up happening is they sneeze and all of a sudden there's a tsunami happening somewhere in the world.
Jeez. I didn't think it was that. I've heard that the flap of a butterfly wing in Japan will cause a tsunami in Florida,
which is it's
an interesting theory.
Not going to happen, but basically what it's saying is for every action there is a reaction, and the butterfly effect means if you change one thing, everything else changes at the same time too. Like there's a whole cascading stream of events that happen.
Yeah, there was an Ashton Kutcher film that basically did something similar to that, but he kept getting worse and worse outcomes.
Yeah, well, I mean, depends on your viewpoint of worse. It was like for some people it was better, for some people it was worse.
Less desirable for our main character.
Yes.
That's what I'll go with as far as the idea of worse.
Okay.
In this one, honestly, I felt like he was probably the most human character we've seen in a while. Because his failures, if you call them that, didn't seem forced is the wrong way to put it. His reaction to the failures that he was seeing, that he was part of, felt genuine. And he's like, nothing I'm doing is making any change whatsoever, until it did. And you're like, sweet. He wasn't wasting his time. He wasn't
Well, it's not that. It's for him. So for him, he calls it revival, and
Yeah.
whenever he sees a butterfly that flies across the way, he's like, "Oh, I know it's going to happen," and it's usually between 1 and 5 minutes. And I look for anything out of the ordinary, and he's able to know, like, in general, what the overall repercussions are if he doesn't do something. Like
Yeah.
it's usually
And
it's never like, oh, I have a revival, I get to play the lottery again, yay, I win, or something like that. No, it's like
it could have
it's
been. He could have
it's
used it for that.
he could have, but he doesn't. What it ends up being is he puts himself in peril to save someone else's life in general.
No, what I personally noticed is it happened a lot when it dealt with children. His
Yes.
revival had something to do
Well,
with kids most of the time. Even as an adult, he would get the revival and he's like, "What's changed? What's the problem?" And he's like, "Oh shit, that car's about to run over a kid."
yeah, but we only see him do it 2 times, and it's in relation to that.
Hmm.
And then we see it 2 more times, but it's not in relation to that immediate thing. So what I found really interesting was the time travel aspect of it. Time travel granddaughters aside, um when he goes back 15 years, he has the opportunity to try and right the wrongs of things that had happened. Or not 15 years, 18 years. He goes back 18
Yeah, I
years.
was gonna say I could have sworn he was in a coma for 15 years
Yes.
when everything was said and done.
Yeah, but he went
But I
back
thought it was
18 years because he was 29, went back
yeah,
to age 11. And so, well, 10, 10, 11. It's like within a
something
few
like it
weeks
was.
of him being 11 years old. So
Yeah,
18 years regardless, right?
yeah,
And the turn of events that end up happening, so that way he kind of like follows through everything, and how he puts his knowledge of the events that had happened back then and able to piece it together from the current timeline that he was in is shows that he genuinely every single time has always put thought into it, that he just didn't let those actions or those moments pass him by idly. Like he chose to be proactive. And I am really glad that they, as the show progressed on, you got to see more of that, and you got to see more of his true self come through, because at the very beginning they
yes.
even say, I wish you would show more of yourself in this work. I wish you would show more of who you are in your art, because he was trying to be a manga artist.
And the stories he had were decent, but they just didn't have that special something to separate them. I think is the way that it was said. Because I watched it subbed and dubbed. But what about you?
Just subbed.
Well, surprisingly, the dubbed version wasn't that different. And I kind of, I don't like saying it because it makes me sound not good. But I prefer the dubbed version of this a lot
Okay.
more than the subbed, only because it just seemed the words, yeah, they changed a little bit. Like one of them was like, "Don't let it find your stomach," and "Don't eat this food on the way on to the delivery." Haha.
Right.
As the weak jokes that you usually get from coworkers go.
Right.
The translation, while it wasn't identical, it was faithful to the material. Does that make sense?
I guess.
Like what was said came through, not necessarily how it was said.
Right. Okay.
So, and I found I like the mom's voice actor on the dub way more than the sub. So,
Okay. No, that's fine. Yeah. I mean, like, everyone's entitled to their opinion. And I will say that there's certainly a number of anime that I've seen where I've 100% preferred the dub over the sub. One that we reviewed, I can tell you right now, my first girlfriend is Gal. I actively tell people, don't watch the subs, watch the dubs. And as you know, I'm a very big advocate for dubs over subs. It's my personal preference. But even I am like,
reverse that.
or subs over
You-
dubs. Yeah, sorry. Prefer
Yeah,
subs
no,
over
I just
dubs.
didn't want you to
But
correct. Didn't want you to get that.
no, you're good. Thank you. But even I am like, watch the dubs on this, man. This is don't watch the subs. Watch the dubs. The dubs are
Well,
just that much better.
you're usually the type of person that's, watch the dubs for comedic value, not for actual viewing pleasure.
Right. Well, I mean,
Whereas
like
here,
I'll watch it both ways, right? It, given the time, I will watch it both ways. Yeah, if
Mhm.
so, and both more so for the viewing pleasure. It's one for the more aesthetic. If I'm watching it dubbed, I'll more so want to watch it dubbed if I really want to focus on the visuals. So if I feel like there's a lot of visuals that I'm missing because I'm trying to keep up with the subs, I will go to dubs just to make sure that I haven't missed anything, while I watch
I
it.
got you. That makes sense. That makes sense
Because
because it's easier to view essentially.
yeah,
You don't have
yeah,
to go look down, look up, look down, look up.
yeah.
Even though after a while subs feel more natural
Hmm.
somehow.
True, true.
I get what you're saying.
So I can understand 100% why you would prefer the dubs over the subs. I mean, especially given the visuals in this. The visuals in this, they weren't top notch, but they weren't lacking, and they certainly made it worthwhile. And
Yeah.
when it came to how the characters carry themselves, how the characters specifically look, how they interact, and the finer details that they really wanted to try and focus on, really honestly came through a majority of the time, which is really, really nice.
I kind of have a question for you.
Yes.
Did the mom look like she had Botox to you?
She always looked like that. She always had big, full lips.
No, I agree she always did, but like I didn't see it at first. And then my wife was like, does she have that? I'm like, wait, yeah, okay. I didn't see that before.
Oh, I noticed it right away because I thought at first, like, oh, it's her with like Botox. She's older lady and everything like that. And then when they traveled back in time and showed her younger, I was like, oh no, her lips are just meant to be naturally fuller.
just naturally plump.
Yep, basically.
Yeah, it was awesome.
No, the story was very well told. It was well done. It was well written. The interactions for everyone that happened in the story is solid. You can't, you know, like obviously everyone's gonna have their viewpoints and opinions on it, which is natural, which also makes us very, very, very great at being our own individual creatures.
Yeah. Like this whole thing was really well done. It kept individuals thinking, and what I really liked was the fact that every time he'd go back and do a reset or a revival, which I always thought was kind of an odd reference, like did somebody die and then that's why kind of thing.
Well, I mean,
But
like, I'm assuming that's why, right? Because usually the ones that we've seen usually were a result of deaths, with the exception of the last one where he
yeah,
kind of like
forced it to happen.
Yeah, forced it to happen more so than anything else.
Yeah, like I thought that was kind of cool. He had some kind of accidental control over it, let's call it.
Yeah, the last hoorah.
Yeah, but now my kind of thought process on it, do you think that it was a desire born from regret? Because he kind of didn't do that until after his classmate disappeared. And he felt super guilty, like, I should have done more. I could have been more. He had the classic survivor's guilt.
No, it wasn't so much that. It was when he was being arrested for that last one. It was when he saw the guy who framed him, right? So the thing is the killer framed other people to take the fall for what was happening.
Yeah, the killer was very intelligent.
Right. And how he chose his victims they were people that were generally isolated, they were ostracized from the group, or like who were traditionally alone a majority of the time, had something in common amongst them, so that way it was easy for him to tie it to a particular person, and that's how you
get away scot-free.
Yeah, that's how he would get away scot-free. And one of the main characters, Kayo, who was originally killed, she's an abuse victim. like her mother abuses her, and everyone else makes a comment on like, oh, I've seen it, I've just been afraid to say something or anything else like that. It's like coming up with a number of excuses, coming up with any reason to have not said or done anything, pretend like it's not there. And for Satoru, he chooses to act on it. And I feel like it's in a way what his life events leading up, constantly interacting and acting on those events led him up to that point to where he would jump back 18 years to right these wrongs.
The 18-year jump, yeah, felt a bit of a stretch because every other time before that was 1 to 5 minutes.
Yes.
And he was like, something's not right. Something needs to change. Something's bad.
Yeah.
What is it? That kind of thing. And I think it's kind of cool because there was a study done. I forget what it was, but it was basically when you see something bad going on, right? Unless you're a special kind of person, unless you've got a rather strong moral compass, let's call it, people in general want to avoid conflict. And if you're in a crowd of people, right?
Yeah.
And you see some bad stuff going on. Let's say some person's abusing their kid physically, or you've got a couple who are becoming a little too aggressive with each other. The man's physically assaulting her, or the woman's verbally destroying this man. And everyone around them will either take out their phone or awkwardly avoid eye contact.
Yeah.
And when there was a study done of like, what would you do in this situation? And most of the people involved were just like, there's other people around. They can step up. Why does it have to be me? And
yeah, and
he became everyone's me, essentially.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that, right? It's like you also have people that ideally will put themselves like, oh, I totally would step in. I would totally do that. And then when put in that situation, the mentality, the viewpoints, when actually confronted with it, their fight or flight instincts kick in, and their instincts is flight because they don't want to get involved.
Yeah. Like, why put yourself in harm's way when it's unnecessary?
Right.
Is a very popular mentality of self-preservation. And I can't really say that's wrong,
Yeah.
But, I go back to the whole part of it takes a special kind of person to interject and insert yourself into a situation that you're not completely aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And you risk being wrong on the chance that you could be right. And again, everyone else is either taking out their phone. And you and I have had this conversation before where like, that's the problem with society. You're not willing to help. You're just willing to record and get views.
Yeah.
Like when some shit goes down, like World Star, that kind of thing. When a World Star event happens, I know a fair amount of people I interact with who have been in situations where they're like, well, taking evidence, recording is just as helpful as if you were to step in and help, because you're collecting evidence, you're helping in that manner. I'm like, no, that's not helping. That's encouraging. There's a difference. And then we get in a huge fight afterwards. But and a lot of that, unfortunately, comes back to the whole, what would I do? I would love to be like, oh, I'd step in, I would do this, but I would also be very afraid of the ramifications of what it would look like if I were to interject myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and he's not thinking of that. He is thinking results. He doesn't care what it looks like. Even if he gets embarrassed by it, he knows what's right and he goes after it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really awesome.
It is. It is really awesome that he's like that. And like I had said, he inspires other people to start taking action for things that they were blind to in the show, or not that they were blind to, that they were like stepping off to the side and be like,
it's somebody else's problem. It's not our problem.
Or, they weren't being as proactive in it as they could have been.
Yeah. That's fair.
And one of his friends too, Kenya, he immediately picks up on that Satoru is not the exact same as how he was. Like he's changed. And he even straight up asks him that. I mean,
Yeah, like, who are you?
Yeah, who are you?
And what have you done?
Right? But the thing is it's not like he's anyone else. He's just a wiser, smarter version that's already lived through events.
Yeah, and I guess he's... You know how I was just literally saying he's the kind of guy that will go through and not care about what it looks like because he knows it's right?
Yeah.
It's possible that he goes through it because he already knows the outcome, which is kind of cheating, in my personal opinion. If you already know that, dodge left, dodge right to avoid a fight, or, to avoid fists thrown, if you go into it, everyone else is going to be like, dude, you're awesome. This is cool. But it's...
Well, the thing is, it's not that he's going into it knowing what's going to exactly happen. And that's where the mentality and the brainstorming really tries to come into play, because he doesn't know who it is. He doesn't know who the main perpetrator is, who the killer is, who's the one that's going to inevitably kill her or the other victims, right?
True.
He is just taking very proactive steps to try and prevent something from happening. And the results are, he just seems like he is like really, really smart. And he is. It's just, he has a one up on, like, if I don't do something, she will die. And that's the only thing. It's like, it's not that he's going in there, dodging every punch and kick and everything like that, acting like it's the Matrix and just like blowing everyone away. He's like doing what he can, and it's even stumbled upon, right? Like Kaio is like hiding in a thing, and Satoru is like, hey, you should be totally safe here. And then dude walks in, doesn't know that Kaio's in there. He just knows that she's not anywhere to be found, and he's pissed off about that. Like, I was like, what the hell, man? My murder that I was going to do is just gone.
Well, his own reasoning was quite interesting to me as well.
It was.
His reasoning was, he goes off of, so the teacher is very vocal about reasons and stuff like that, and he tells a story about a Japanese folklore where the guy who's not a good guy goes to hell, and in his life he had saved a spider, and as thanks, the spider ends up giving him a lifeline out of hell. Buddha drops him a silk spider web or spider thread to drag himself out of hell. And while he's climbing up, he notices that there are a bunch of other people climbing with him. And in his effort to
I remember the story just a little bit differently. But
okay, how do you remember it?
Well, it's not that he was coming up there. It's he fought everyone else to be the one that gets to climb up the string, and when he's climbing up, the thread snaps.
See, that was the difference between the sub and the dub.
Right.
In the dub,
the dub is more so along the lines of like he's being given this opportunity and he's having to fight other people off, versus where he's not. He's not fighting people off to get the opportunity. He's fighting other people off, so he's the only one with the opportunity. Right.
And that's why the thread breaks.
Gotcha.
Because he didn't change his ways.
Okay. Yeah, no, the reasoning, I agree with you, is great. How he ties it in is wonderful. And then how he also like references his own childhood at the same time too, like with the hamsters, is also like how he came to that conclusion, right? Like, here's this event of what happens with the hamsters. And then he also ties it into this story at the exact same time. And then he ties it into the murders and everything that's going on, Yeah,
how he sees everybody with a thread and they're like, well, you guys got to go to Buddha.
Yeah, you guys got to go bye-bye. Have fun, And it's not like he kills them all the same way. Everyone's killed in I want to say in a different way, at least for the ones that we know of. Like they weren't all killed the exact same way.
I feel like they were all killed with the cold, with something to do with the freezing temperature.
One of them was a fire, like arson.
Oh, the 17-year-old.
Well, her, but also the fire when they were younger, because there were briquettes and everything needed for starting a fire. And
Oh, yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
yeah, so it's not that he's like killing everyone with cold. It's just one of them was killed specifically with coldness because that's the opportunity that was given. And it was easy enough for him to be able to, it's easy for him to be able to tie in other people too, doing it in a very particular way at the same time as well.
See, that actually changes my perspective on it because I assumed, so when he kills Kaio, right, he sprays her face and puts her in a freezer. It's a very peaceful way to go. You're knocked out. You're not, there's no pain. There's no torture. There's no.
Well, doesn't even need to put her in a freezer. He just takes her out in the snow. And you'll freeze to death. The cold spraying, they emphasize spraying her face, but it's just misting her with a bottle of water will immediately start lowering your body temperature.
Correct. Spraying her head, I believe, is the specific part. But he also put her in a freezer. And then when she was done in the freezer, like dead, he brought her back to the shed. So that's why I thought that they were like, oh, so it's kind of painless. And then when he kills our main character, or at least attempts it, it's in an ice river where he starts going numb. And it doesn't look good. I want to point that out, but it's not nearly as
painless either. It is pretty, that level of cold is pretty painful. But also when Sachiko, Satoru's mother, she gets stabbed at the beginning.
True.
And frames Satoru with him being the one. And then, the 17-year-old Ari set on fire, tries to kill her by setting the house on fire. So
yeah, I guess I can differentiate that because they're adults, and in my head the kids were a much more peaceful departure, let's call it. But that's just how I saw it. I've been wrong before.
But you also, as a result of everything that's going on, I'm also glad that you do get a true resolution to it, right? You get the resolution of what's going on. You get the resolution of where everyone's at, the overall outcome for everything in the end. Because, they could have just as easily just left it unresolved,
And super ambiguous to hopefully get a season 2 or a money grab.
Right. No, but instead, I'm glad that they really focused in on getting it done. Getting the story taken care of.
I kind of feel like they respected the viewer in this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they respected the viewer in the sense of they didn't give you BS.
No.
You knew exactly what you wanted, and they delivered.
Yeah.
So
the music, the opening and closing music, I also really enjoyed, and if I remember correctly, I think the opening credits also kind of show you exactly who the perpetrator is too, if I remember correctly, like quickly.
Really?
I believe so.
Oh, you've a better eye than I do. I watched it, I think the first 3 episodes, and then after that I just started skipping it because it's not going to be new. And I listened to the first few seconds of the music. I was like, oh, same music, no change. That'd be kind of interesting if they just showed you who the perpetrator was, though.
Well, they changed them just enough so that way you probably couldn't tell, but
not immediately, at least.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of cool still.
If I remember correctly, I could be mistaken, which is very, very, very easily so.
Well, we've all had that unfortunate happening,
right?
Once or twice.
Yeah. So if you didn't, they did a good job. I will say this before we get into the rating. They did a good job at leading you to people who were originally suspected and people who it also could have been as well.
Yeah.
They did a great job at leading everyone down the line for that.
Well, they also made the bad guy kind of smart. It wasn't a purely evil guy. It was a smart guy. And I appreciated that. I appreciated that a lot because it made me feel like, as the viewer, that they're not treating me stupidly. They're not treating me dumb. They think that whoever's watching this has a brain and they can use it.
Yeah.
So, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yep. Well, I think this is a great spot for us to leave a rating, sir. So on a scale of up to 10, how would you rate it?
So on a scale from 1 to 10, I would probably give this, I'm going to give it a solid 9. There was a few flaws that I found, but not many. The music was decent and fit everywhere. I feel like I got the respect that I was due as the viewer, and I don't think anybody really got shortchanged, and I don't think there was any plot holes that I can really complain about, to be honest. It is something that I would gladly show again. I actually showed my wife as I watched the second playthrough because, like I said, I've seen this before. Maybe not in its entirety, but I've seen it before, and it was engaging. We had conversations about it, not nearly as in depth as you and I do, but it was a good family conversation piece.
Yeah, no, it is definitely a good movie. So your overall score is
9.
Okay. I'm gonna go with an 8. I'm going with an 8 because I like I had said at the beginning, I immediately knew who the perpetrator was the second he came on scene. I was like, oh, yep, that's the guy. 100%. I was like, I would be surprised if it wasn't him. It's like, and then again, everything that happened, how he was, his talking, his interactions, everything just like screamed, yep, that's the guy. That's the guy. 100%. That is the dude. That's the dude. I'll be surprised if it's not the dude. 100%. And then when it finally came to, it was like, would you look at that? Who could have called that?
I'm pretty sure it was you.
Yep, pretty sure it was me. But no, it was good. I would definitely recommend it to other people. It was definitely worth the watch. I really enjoyed it. So there's no getting around that. So next week we're gonna watch another series. It's 11 episodes plus an OVA, and it is called Link Click.
Link Click. Okay.
It's by an anonymous recommender. They left no name as to what they wanted to be called or anything. It was just blank. So thank you very much for that recommendation. We are going to watch it, and that'll be next week's choice.
Sweet.
Well, that's all the time that we have for today. If you feel like we got something right, something wrong, did it too much justice, not enough justice, just plain old just being weird and creepy or anything else, let us know. All the contact information is on our website, featuredanimepodcast.com. We also have a link to our shop there, a link to our Patreon there, as well as in every episode show notes, we do have affiliate links for where you can buy the manga at the very least, or other stuff for Right Stuff Anime. It is very much appreciated if you do use those links and choose to buy something on there. We do get a little bit of a kickback. Or if you want to just have all the extra little fluff and the pre and post content cut out, patreon.com/featured anime podcast. $1 a month will get you access to the bonus content. Or if you just want the core show, just none of the Patreon affiliate links and all that other stuff, we have a tier for you as well, so that way you can just get the core show. And again, that's patreon.com/featured anime podcast, or you can join us in our Discord. We're always talking and hanging out in there, or rather, I'm always talking and hanging out in there. Rick's more so lurking, not like our teacher in this show, yeah. but he does lurk in there occasionally. But patreon.com/featured anime podcast and featuredanimepodcast.com for everything else. And until next time, I'm Jack.
I'm Rick. And we can revive this one more time if necessary. We'll see you next time. Later.